What is up, guys? So Sports back again with another video. And in today's video, we're going to talk about Coach Kenny Atkinson, former coach of the Brooklyn Nets, was just fired today in a pretty shocking and questionable move, I guess you could say. I'm just want to give my thoughts on that, and I'm going to look at replacements for the Brooklyn Nets and where Coach Kenny Atkinson could potentially land. So starting off, Woj tweeted that the Nets and Kenny Atkinson were going to mutually part ways. That was what he first said, and then there were some other people that came out and said, oh, players wanted him gone, or this was something that was gonna happen a long time ago. I'm just gonna give my quick thoughts about that. So players wanting him gone, this leads me to think that the big guys wanted him gone, and I don't know who. I'm not gonna point fingers, but let's just do some detective work, I guess you want to say. So usually, when a player and a coach have conflict or whatever, teams kind of tend to choose the coaches over the players, unless the player's some untradeable guy, you can't move him, or you won't move him because he's a superstar. One that I can probably think of off the top of my head, Jimmy Butler in Chicago. Jimmy, I'm pretty sure him and Tom Thibodeau, or what? It wasn't even Tom Thibodeau, actually. I'm stupid. It was him and Fred Hoiberg had problems. The Bulls chose Fred Hoiberg, which is funny because Fred Hoiberg was fired, I think, 2 seasons later. So, yeah, but they ultimately decided to trade Jimmy Butler. So yeah, you usually choose coaches over players. I mean, if I'm looking at the Nets, if Taurean Prince or Theo Penton or Garrett Temple was Wilson Chandler was man, I really hate this Coach Kenny Atkinson guy, I just don't think the Nets would fire him. Maybe that's just me, but come on, But if it was a multitude of guys, if maybe Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie and Jared Allen said it, but then again, that wouldn't even make sense because last year they were the coach. There was never any talks of, ooh, Kenny Atkinson needs to get moved or whatever, and they made the playoffs as a team because Kenny Atkinson had his own system. So I just don't think those guys said anything. And then I'm looking at Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving, the two superstars on the team. Kevin Durant, I think one of the main reasons as to why he came to Brooklyn is to play under Coach Kenny Atkinson, because he liked this system or whatever. So that leaves one culprit. Now I'm one of the biggest Kyrie Irving fans. I love Kyrie, I'm not one to bash him. I appreciate everything that he's done for Cleveland. If you guys know, I'm a Cleveland Cavaliers fan. I appreciate everything he's done for us. The shot, he made the post-LeBron era enjoyable, at least. But I think he's probably the reason as to why he got fired. That's just my opinion. I just think Kevin Durant, I don't know why would KD want Coach Kenny Atkinson fired? He hasn't played yet. That wouldn't make sense. Spencer Dinwiddie, Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, that kind of core of guys, they were there last year. They had success under Coach Kenny Atkinson. They bought into his system. I just don't see as to why they would want him fired. And then, if a guy like Garrett Temple or Theo Penton or Wilson Chandler, if they were even DeAndre Jordan was oh, I really don't like this guy, I just don't think the Nets would fire him. So I think Kyrie is probably the culprit here. And I think the reason as to why they fired him is because, you want to make Kyrie Irving happy, because if you make him happy, then KD's happy. Him and Kyrie are friends. You don't want to cause conflict between the two. Potentially one is oh, I want out now or something, even though that probably would never happen. But still, if this is Kyrie's doing, I don't get why. I just don't get why for Kyrie, considering that you don't have KD, so you never saw the full potential that you, Kevin Durant, and this core of players in this team, and Coach Kenny Atkinson had. For 1 and 2, you were injured the entire season essentially. You missed so much time with that shoulder injury and stuff. And even when you were playing amazing. Under Coach Kenny Atkinson, and I just don't get as to why he'd want him fired. Now this is all speculation. I don't know what's going on. I'm just talking. I'm just talking right now. So this is, I'm not going to talk I know exactly what happened. It could not have been Kyrie. I'm just making assumptions. But yeah, that's just that. So that's my quick thoughts on that. But also for the Nets, why? Like, why now? I'm like, I just don't get it. You can say, okay, this was they said this was something like long in the making or whatever. But why now? Why right now? Why would you decide to fire him on March 7th, 2020? We are just about a month away from the playoffs. You're in the playoff race. I think they're the eighth seed now. You know, you couldn't have at least waited till the offseason. I think that would have made a lot more sense. So then you don't have this embarrassing, you know, thing where it's like, oh my God, like, what are you guys doing? And then they're kind of trying to smear his name, saying that like people wanted him gone. He has like no emotion or whatever. He wasn't like a talkative person or whatever. I don't know. But like, it just doesn't make sense at all. It just does not. You know, you're coming off back-to-back wins. I think you beat you beat the Celtics, obviously, where Karis LeVert erupted. And then I forget who they beat last night. But I think it was the Kings, but I'm not too sure. It just doesn't make sense. You know, it really does not make sense. And I want to touch on like this season even more, you know, because you can say that maybe their season wasn't even disappointing. People knew coming into this season that the Brooklyn Nets, this season was like a who cares season, you know? Kevin Durant is out. You're waiting for him to come back next year when you can finally contend, hopefully, for a championship. And then you had Kyrie Irving. He was out with injury. Pretty sure Spencer Dinwiddie missed some games with injury. Karis LeVert missed some time with injury. And then Karis LeVert is just not coming back. He's picking up steam. And then you just fire your head coach. So now the Brooklyn Nets and Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie have to form and get acclimated to an entire new system on the interim. I'd say he's an intern because I don't think he'll last long. And Jacques Vaughn, it doesn't make sense. But that's my opinion. I just think it doesn't make sense. Now we're going to look at some potential candidates for them, the Brooklyn Nets, to hire this offseason because, like I said, I don't think Jacques Vaughn is going to be the head coach moving forward. So I'm just going to name three guys that I think will, you know, be candidates and who I believe is probably the most likely to get that. So the first guy, probably Mark Jackson. Mark Jackson, I mean, he's well known in the NBA community. Was a head coach with the Golden State Warriors, had success there, but I just don't think that's likely. I'm just throwing names out, by the way. I just don't think that's likely. I don't think Mark Jackson will ever get a coaching job. As much as people talk about him as a coach, what he said, like, I don't know if people know, like, as to why the Warriors fired him, so to say, because he did have some pretty harsh comments, you know, about I don't want to get into it. You can search it up and look. You can look at what he said or whatever. What he said, I just don't think he'll be a coach anymore. He's in analysis now. I think that's what he's going to be. So I just don't think they'll hire him. Next guy is probably Tyronn Lue, assistant coach for the Los Angeles Clippers. He coached Kyrie, in Cleveland. But then again, reports did come out that Kyrie and Tyronn Lue did not see eye to eye. That Kyrie thought Ty Lue was a horrible coach. So I mean, I don't know if Ty Lue wants to deal with Kyrie Irving again. So now I come to the most likely candidate for me. And that's David Fizdale. Now, you can talk about David Fizdale's time with the Knicks and how just atrocious it was, but I mean, let's not act like the Knicks were a good team. They were horrible. You know, when you have 6 power forwards, like some of the lineups they had out there were just abysmal. But again, Fizdale, he's cool with Kyrie, he's cool with KD. It's not even like they don't even like need a coach. They just need a guy, you know, to have that title. You know, a guy who can keep the emotions, like, who can just talk to the guys and just, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, you know what I mean? You know, just one of those guys, you know? So I think he was probably the most likely candidate, in my opinion. I don't know. I mean, they could hire some dude out of college, or I don't know. But yeah, David Fizdale is who I think is most likely. Now let's talk about Kenny Atkinson and where he can end up. Now, I know for a fact there's going to be a plethora of teams that are going to be looking to hire this guy. So I'm just going to go over a few. The Bulls, he could definitely go there. But if you're Coach Kenny Atkinson, do you want to go to the Bulls? I don't think so. They're kind of dysfunctional. I mean, if Jim Boylan is not going to get fired, which, I mean, it really does not look like he is. I just don't know what the front office is doing. This team has no construction. I mean, you have Kobe White, but then, like, you're talking about, like, there's rumors that they're going to take another. I don't know what they're doing. You know, Zach LaVine wants out. Pretty sure he wants out. I don't know. Other teams out there, off the top of my head, I can go look at the standings really quickly because I'm just thinking about teams that are like, not doing so good. Maybe the Washington Wizards if they want to move on from Scott Brooks. Detroit Pistons if they want to move on from Dwayne Casey. There's a handful of teams, but I think the best team for him is probably the New Orleans Pelicans. I think the Pelicans will probably look to move on from their coach, Alvin Gentry. Gentry's just not a good coach. I just don't think he is. I mean, you talk about a guy who had Drew Holiday and Anthony Davis for multiple years and was only able to make the playoff, twice? Won one series. Now, okay, the team construction was not good, but I mean, still, like, you have Anthony Davis in his, maybe not in his prime, but doing what he's doing now. Yeah, he's probably gone, but I think that'd be the best choice for Coach Kenny Atkinson. I think he's familiar with the assistant GM in New Orleans. I forget what his name is, but he's familiar with him. Personally, where do I want him to go? To my Cavs, because I don't know what the Cavs are going to be doing with JB Bickerstaff. I don't know if I trust JB Bickerstaff as a coach, and I feel like Kenny Atkinson would be perfect for the type of rebuild we're having with the group of guys we have already and the top pick that we're going to have this year and hopefully next year again. But yeah, so that's going to do it for this video, guys. I hope you guys did enjoy. This is my opinions on the Coach Kenny Atkinson firing, where I think he could end up, and like some coaches that the Nets could look to hire. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. Hope you guys did enjoy. We're on the road to 60 subs. Please like and sub and share with friends. And it's So Sports, and I'm out. Peace.